Hey, friends and family, this is marriage and divorce coach, Dr. Angel Cartagena, coming to you with this week's edition of Tuesday Tips. And for those of you who are regular watchers, you know that last week I kicked off a series where I'm covering 7 major questions off of a Christian post-divorce inventory that I developed. In other words, if you are looking to heal, if you're looking to move forward from your divorce, these are 7 questions that you ought to ask yourself. Now, last week we covered questions 1 and 2. The first question is, have you stopped focusing on what your spouse did? That's not to minimize your feelings, that's not to minimize what they did, but at some point you need to leave that to God and move on. If you call yourself a Christian, I want you to remember that at the end of Romans 12, the Lord reminds us that vengeance is His. He is the one who metes out punishment for wrongdoing. And so you need to move on. And the second question I asked is, how did you contribute to your divorce? How did we contribute to our divorce? Let me tell you something. In a marriage, both people contributed. Even if one of them did something outrageous like commit adultery or abandon you, it doesn't matter. You contributed in some way. And I covered a number of different questions that were sort of sub questions to that one. And if you want to check that out, by the way, you can go to the Acts 831 Ministries YouTube channel. And last week's Tuesday Tips is posted on there. This week, I want to answer 2 more questions. And the first question is a double question. It's, what childhood issues did I bring into our marriage? And what childhood issues did my spouse bring into our marriage? Oftentimes when we get married, especially, for example, in my situation, it was one where I got married young. I was 19 years old. I wasn't old enough to be thinking about these sorts of issues. And oftentimes people who are older don't either. They don't, especially once you begin to get sexually involved with that person, and ooh, it feels good, but in the end, it causes you not to pay attention to what matters. And one of the questions, or one of the issues that should be unearthed in pre-marriage counseling, is what childhood issues each of you are bringing in. All of us bring them in. It's just some issues are bigger than others. And if you're not prepared, if you don't know, if you're not even aware of the issues, and you don't address the issues, obviously, then those can always cause you harm. The fourth question on the inventory, so that was the third question I gave you. What issues did I bring into the marriage from childhood, and what issues did they bring in? But the fourth question is, once issues started to rise in the marriage, ask yourself these questions. Once you started to see issues in your marriage, did you ignore them? Did you take any affirmative steps to address them? Right? Like did you even try to talk about it? One of the predictors that a marriage will last a long time is if a couple demonstrates that they have the ability to, number 1, communicate, and number 2, solve problems. If you from the very beginning do those and do those well, then the likelihood of your marriage lasting will be great. But if you don't communicate well, if you tend to be destructive with your words, denigrating with your words, or you just avoid stuff, it'll come back to bite you. And then as part of question 4, did I insist on couples counseling? If she or he was not willing to go, did I get counseling for myself? As a pastoral counselor, one of the things I frequently advise people is, look, try to get your spouse to come to counseling and we can work on these issues together. But if they're not willing to attend counseling, you should come for yourself. Right? You need to have it for your own health and your well-being. And so now some people will say, well, Pastor, isn't that, aren't you kind of going back now and sort of beating a dead horse, if you will? No, because you're going to need this perspective if you are even thinking about getting into a relationship with someone else. If you, for example, are a conflict avoider, you're the type of person who you will not talk about stuff, then I'm telling you now, this is going to cause problems in any future relationships that you have. And by the way, those that type of tendency, conflict avoidance, will not only cause marriage issues and issues in your relationships with, in your romantic relationships. They'll cause problems in all of your relationships, including with your family, with your colleagues at work. It will, listen, the problems will follow you all the days of your life, because there comes a time when you need to be able to talk about and confront issues and point them out when they are going wrong. And oftentimes people they tend to avoid talking about issues. Now, it doesn't help if you're married to somebody who makes talking about issues unpleasant, and so that can be an issue as well. But here's the thing: a counselor or coach can actually teach you. For those of you who are married, for example, and that's an issue in your marriage, you can get a counselor or a coach, and they can help you. They can give you techniques, they can give you ways of talking to one another that will make communications easier. But listen, you got to submit to that, okay? And so questions 1 through 4: have you stopped focusing on what your spouse did? Number 2, how did I contribute to our divorce? Number 3, what childhood issues did I bring into our marriage, and what childhood issues did my spouse bring into our marriage? And number 4, once issues started to rise in the marriage, did I ignore them? Did I take affirmative steps to address them? Did I insist on couples counseling? Or if she or he was not willing to go, did I get counseling for myself? And so those are the 2 questions for this week. I pray that it helps. If you need more help, if you want to talk, go to my website, drangelcartagena.com. That's all one word, drangelcartagena.com. And there's a contact tab where you can reach out, send me a message, say that you want to talk. And listen, don't forget, first 30 minutes are free, right? A consultation is free. I don't charge for consultations. I just like to go ahead and see what the issue is, because sometimes I can help, sometimes I can't. There are times when coaching is not the answer. You really need to go to counseling, and some deep, deep counseling. So anyway, reach out on the website. I pray this helps. Have a great and fantastic week. And as always, I remind you that God loves you, and so do I.